Hi, and welcome to Soft Signal. My name is Varun. I'm joined by Aditya. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello again. Saturday evening, time to talk cricket.
Yeah,
I'm ready,
uh,
better.
exactly. So we're in the middle of the first test between India and New Zealand, and it's actually poised pretty well. But it's not over yet, so we'll maybe talk about it next week. But today we thought we'd again uh, not focus in on a particular series or a team, but just talk about a few range of topics in cricket which have been talked about a lot in other media and other by other people, but we wanted to present our view as well. So we'll start off with the first one, which is so the playing field in cricket, it's fair to say, is not even right now. There's a couple of aspects to it. Firstly, we're seeing a lot of teams winning at home. And we don't have the exact stats on hand, but it seems like, at least from a viewer perspective, that the home advantage that people talk about has increased plentyfold over the past few years. Just a couple of examples come to mind of India winning a couple of series abroad in Australia. Um, then I can't actually think of any more because I'm only thinking of India. But I think Sri Lanka won in South Africa a couple of years ago. But there aren't enough victories happening in Test cricket, especially, which makes for boring, predictable series and people blaming things like pitch and toss, etc. So I'd love to know your views just to start off, and then we can dig deeper into this something with this.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think away teams are winning far less frequently than before, and the fact that they will lose seems quite inevitable. I think over the last few years, if you look back, it's probably only India that has sort of been able to win series abroad, and even in the series that they've lost, they've sort of at least given a tough fight, right? Think about the series that was left half completed in England. Think about India's tour of England a couple of years ago, where the scoreline didn't suggest that India played well, but they actually competed in almost all those test matches. Um, but then again, obviously, there's something to learn, right, from the way India goes about it. I think India has sort of prepared players to play in those kind of conditions. I think, and I'm referring specifically to the fast bowling unit that India has. So they are able to field players who can give India a chance to win in away conditions as well. I don't think the other teams have done that, right? Think about South Africa. They come to India so often, get hammered, and go back. Uh, and obviously, it's because they don't have a quality spinner in their lineup. They don't have one, let alone two spinners. So um, that's the kind of stuff that I think teams need to look at. They probably need to prepare themselves better for away series. And I think that's going to be the challenges in it. I mean, it's always fun to not know where a series is headed at the start of the series itself. At the moment, it seems very lopsided. You spoke about Sri Lanka winning the series in South Africa a few years ago, but honestly, that was a flash in the pan. I would think. Um, but yeah, in general, I think away teams need to prepare themselves a lot better based upon the conditions in order to win some test matches away and make it for more interesting viewing.
Yeah, agreed. I think the only other team that I was just thinking of while you were speaking was New Zealand. They won in England this year. I think they won in Pakistan. I mean, that's UAE a couple of years ago. But yeah, teams generally need to be to prepare. I wonder if a lot of that has to do with just first of all, it costs money to send A teams abroad. That's what India have been doing very successfully also in the past 4 year cycle. Been sending A teams abroad, so players have been getting experience in conditions, and they've been and then so when time comes for them to play for India, which we saw in the India Australia series last year, they're not like caught out like fish out of water, right? So it's a resource thing. It's also a time thing. With so much cricket being played, do they even have time to like you and I are old enough to remember, right? About 20, 25 years ago, when teams used to go abroad, they would play 5 or 6 warm-up matches against,
Yeah.
especially in England, against county side, board presidents 11 when people used to come to India. Now, Now you see, New Zealand came to India 2 days after playing a World Cup final. Uh, so there's no question of a warm up. It's not even enough to come and play the actual match. So it's probably just a time thing, also, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, it's probably just a time team. I think more time means more preparation for players to get used to the conditions. That's true. I think that being said, it makes the A tours all the more important when it comes to developing players for the future. Because if they already have experience in those conditions before turning into India or international players, then they probably need less time to acclimatize, less time to sort of learn about the conditions. So yeah, you're right. I think one way to sort of overcome this issue is by planning better or more frequent A tours. Now that, of course, is a challenge in COVID times, right? So that's another added sort of complication that cricket boards need to take into account. But I think that it of course takes years to build. I mean, this fast bowling unit that India has at the moment has taken years to build. So it's only if the process starts early that you will see results maybe 5 years later or 6 years later. But yeah, I mean, I don't remember the last time South Africa beat India in India. I think or maybe I
It was
do. It was
2000.
1996 or 99 or something.
Yeah, it was 2000. That
2000. Oh yeah, that
last
was the
series before the
famous.
match fixing
Exactly,
scandal.
the famous years of 99 and 2000 with the match
Yeah,
fixing
South
scandal.
Africa fixed the match and they still lost. They won the series. So that's how
Yeah,
bad
yeah,
our team was.
exactly. So that's like 20 years back.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of it's not good for Test cricket in general when away teams simply cannot compete in foreign conditions. So I think a lot needs to be done in terms of preparing players for these A tours through the A tours. A lot needs to be done by all cricket boards, I think. But yeah, I'm waiting for more competitive series. Even when India goes to New Zealand, for example, after 2009, they haven't won anything.
Yeah.
The recent series in New Zealand in Jan, just before COVID hit us, it was quite embarrassing for India, right? I mean, I think India was the number one or number two ranked test team at that stage. And they went to New Zealand and got absolutely rolled over.
Yeah.
Um, of course, it's still good that they don't get rolled over in Australia anymore. In fact, it's the other way around. But my point is that other teams also need to do this, right? Pakistan needs to go to Australia and win. You know, Australia needs to go to. Oh, sorry, West Indies needs to go to Australia and win. West Indies need to go to Sri Lanka and win. So that's the kind of stuff that we are talking about. It just makes world cricket a lot more interesting to view.
Yeah. And people talk a lot about pitches. I don't think pitches should come into the picture at all because that's the point of going abroad, right? And winning. That's the skill test. That's why it's considered a challenge to go abroad and win, or even compete, because pitches are different in every country. But to negate the influence of pitches somewhat, do you think the toss, like there's been talk about the toss in the T20 World Cup, but that is it's a difficult matter to deal with in a neutral tournament. But do you think the away team in a test series should be given the chance to choose whether they want to bat or bowl?
Yes, I think so. I actually think so. I mean, everybody knows that batting first in test matches is an advantage. In the shorter formats, batting second is. But I'll talk about test matches now. In India, for example, the pitch is probably at its best on days one, two, and probably a little bit of day three, depending on how long the test match lasts, of course. But if you win the toss as a home team and you're able to bat in India, if you're able to bat first in India, put up a decent score, you're in all likelihood you're going to win the test match simply because you've got the bowlers to run through the opposition in those conditions, whereas the opposition does not. So yeah, I mean, it's something to explore. Maybe the away team gets to bat first, and then the home team bats second, and that sort of negates the home advantage to a certain extent. Um, but that being said, that's a fix. That's more like a fix, right? It's not a bigger solution to the matter. So it's sort of a fix to taper over the fact that away teams are not prepared enough, right? So you give them this fix that might allow them to compete a bit more. So it's a fix. However, it's a short term fix. However, in the bigger scheme of things, um, it's um, it's better for test cricket, for world cricket in general, to have players coming through the ranks who are already sort of capable of dealing with foreign conditions. And again, that can happen only if there's more focus on A tours, and there's more focus by cricket boards of respective nations to actually um, invest in players and sort of already make them ready for international cricket before they actually play international cricket.
Yeah, agree with all of that. Like, and just moving on to something similarly related, like also we see teams like New Zealand now. For New Zealand are the World Test champions, and they play two Test series at home. I mean, two tests in a series at home, and when they go abroad, they play a maximum of three tests. Most of their series are also two tests. First of all, I hate this two test format anyway because it should be at least three or ideally five. But is that even fair? Because India, it's about money again. Because when we were growing up again, India would never get, would always play two tests or three tests in England, Australia, and they got better and they got more money. And now they play five tests in England always. They play four tests in Australia always. Australia come over, they play four tests. England come over, they play four or five. So the big teams are playing bigger series. But I don't remember when Pakistan or South Africa or New Zealand played a four or five test series ever. Now, is this even? It is about the commercial aspect of it, but how fair is it, and what can be done to include, provide more inclusivity? Because, for example, something like the World Test Championship, I think it would be fair only if everyone played the same number of tests. Also, you can't, like, they do use some weighted method to figure out how much each win would be worth, but it's not fair.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little bit it's quite unfair, I think. And let's face it, right? New Zealand is as good a side as any of the other three sides you mentioned. So clearly, they should be getting more than two test matches. Of course, I understand there's a commercial aspect behind it, like you said. Um, but I think I still think New Zealand should get more than two test matches. But at the same time, I think that even other teams should get more than two, or at least tour other countries more often. When did Bangladesh ever play in Australia? I don't think Bangladesh has ever toured Australia. At least I cannot think of
They
it in
played
the last.
once, I think, long ago, 2003 or something.
Okay, 2003, probably one test match. I don't know.
Yeah,
Right? When was the last time Bangladesh played a proper test match series in India? I think recently there was a day night. There was a day test and a day night test.
yeah.
Right, one in Hyderabad, one in Kolkata. Um, but even that series was the first time they came to India after ever since they started playing test match cricket. So that's imbalance, right? How are you expected to see any growth in those countries in terms of their cricketing skill if they simply don't get the chance to play?
Yeah.
What amazed me the most was, you think of Sri Lanka. Okay, they're probably not a very good team right now, but a few years ago they were a really good team. Still, the likes of Jayawardena and Sangakkara probably toured Australia twice in their entire careers, and that's really, I mean, it's laughable, because here we're talking about guys who've scored more than 10,000 runs in their Test match career, but haven't got the opportunity to tour Australia more than once or twice. So I think this balance or the lack of this balance across world cricket only hurts the nations, right? It only hurts um, the individual nations, and as a result, world cricket. Right? What's happening today is that there are three really strong teams um, that, who play each other often and who play each other in like elongated test match series, like 4 or 5 tests. Um, but then there's a fourth team who's actually the world test champion, who's the world test champion. And just because it's a smaller nation with a board that's probably not as rich, they do not get to play a five match series. So, I mean, the solution to this is simple, right? They've probably got to look at it in a way so as to even the battlefield, right? So probably give everybody three test match series, right? Or if the calendar is not long enough to accommodate 5 test match series, just give everybody 3 test match series. I think that sort of is fair
Yeah.
to all the nations. It will help develop all the nations. It will also ensure that the series is long enough to ensure that the best team wins. 2 test match series, you could have one test match probably being won by the team that normally is the weaker team. Probably didn't deserve to win. Probably there were a few off days for the stronger team. Um, but in a 3 test match series, it's always going to be the best team winning. So probably give everybody 3 test match series. I know that commercially this is probably going to be worse for strong cricket boards. But I think for the overall betterment of Test match cricket or international cricket, which means that all the teams should be on level playing fields. I think everybody should be given 3 Test match series, and then you invest in the development of these teams.
Yeah, for sure. And like a team like BCCI wanting sorry, a board like BCCI wanting 5 test series all the time, it's greed, right? They still make money, but they can find other avenues to make money. They don't need to play 2 extra tests. They can sacrifice their 2 tests. So ideally, like yes, everyone should play more tests, but yeah, if that's not possible, that isn't possible, I think. So then they have a 3 test series for everyone. That would be ideal. Um, and then let's move on to the last topic I think that we wanted to cover, which is one day cricket. Now, one day cricket, according to me, bilateral limited overs cricket, basically, even one day and T20, is just pointless. It's like India played New Zealand in T20s right now. Don't think either of us watched the series.
Yeah.
If you have ODI series especially are even worse because they're longer games also. So even more boring. And then you just have the flagship tournaments like the World Cup and all, which should happen, yes. But do you think there's two things, right? One, they can either make ODI cricket more competitive by having like multi-team tournaments, like three tri-series or quadrangulars, like they used to have in the 90s and early 2000s, I think, also, or just do away. There will be a time when ODI cricket will just die then, and then they'll have T20 cricket without bilaterals, with just leagues and then international tournaments like they have in football, for example.
Yeah, I mean, ODI cricket has been dying for a long time, and the only reason it's alive is because of the multinational tournaments. But I have another suggestion on this. I mean, I think the format of ODI cricket needs a little bit of a change up. I think you simply cannot have 50 overs of one team batting and 50 overs of another team trying to chase that down anymore. I think the format has gotten old and it probably needs some change. So what always has sort of intrigued me is why not split the 25 overs into 2 innings, right? So you have the first team that wins the toss, they bat 21st. I mean, well, let's not talk about the toss, but that you have one team batting 25 overs, and then the other team playing 25 overs, and then again you have the second innings. Now you might say that that's exactly the same as T20 cricket but multiplied by 2. But then that's where I have another suggestion. uh, the team that bats first, right, ends its 25 overs, and once the second team has finished batting, the first team comes out and continues its innings, right? So the same batsmen who were not out at the end of the first innings continue into the second innings, right? Similarly, when the second team comes out to chase the score, they continue from where they left off. So essentially, we are talking about not restarting an innings the second time, but continuing the same innings, right? So this is different from Test cricket where you restart your second innings.
Yeah.
And at the same time, this is different from T20 cricket as well, because if you kind of follow the 25 overs and then restart again, what teams will play it like a T20 match, right? They'll probably they have 10 wickets in hand. They need to survive for 25 overs again. So they're going to like play how they play in T20 cricket. Just do that twice. So I think it could be an interesting format to consider, wherein you split the two innings, but you continue the second innings from where you left off in the first. Like everything, same score, the same batsman, the bowlers as well. Everything just continues, but split over two innings. So I think a change in format would probably make ODI cricket a little more interesting, because this is something that also requires a different strategy, right? It's different from T20 cricket, it's different from Test match cricket. So, how do teams approach this new strategy or this new format where they need to carry over and continue their innings, right? So that's the kind of stuff that's something new, uh, some fresh formats that would have obviously keep spectators interested, and it would also be interesting to see which team can adapt to it the best and how quickly.
Yeah. Maybe four innings of 20 overs might be best
That
then.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. The
That
only
too.
downside is that I'm just thinking of what if a situation is that after the first innings of both teams, let's say team one has scored 200 for two, and then team two is like 80 for six. Then this whole second innings kind of becomes meaningless for both teams because it's kind of. But then that's how you have it in a test match anyway, right? Where
Exactly.
one team
Exactly.
can be so far behind in the first innings, and then teams will strategize and choose they probably won't be 80 for six. They might just choose to conserve wickets and then go for it in their last innings.
Exactly. So but that's exactly the kind of thing that might happen, right? So uh, that requires a new strategy altogether, right? I mean, okay, they might try to be conservative. So team B, the second team, might try to be conservative in their first innings, but they don't want to be too conservative either, right? Because it might leave them too much to get in their fourth innings. Similarly, team one might choose to go might choose to go all in, rack up a really huge first inning score, but then they can't go too far all in, because what if team B does the same, and then you're left with team one is left with nothing in their second innings. So that's the interesting kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that's really fresh, right? It's new. So it'll be interesting to see how teams adapt to this. But then again, uh, this is this is just us discussing.
Yeah.
I don't think there is any, or at least I've
But
not seen
Sachin had
any.
said it, I think,
Oh, really? He
a
had?
couple of years ago or something. So we are in good company.
Yeah. So
Uh,
we are in good books,
Next week
right?
we'll have Sachin Tendulkar on the show
Yeah.
to talk about
Exactly.
this.
Exactly.
But yeah, it is actually it's something that is at least worth a try. It might not work, but there's no reason to not try it. They're trying anything right nowadays, T10
Right.
and all sorts of things.
Right, but I think Sachin, you're right. Sachin had said this, but I think what he was suggesting is just to have like 25 over
Each, right?
innings, but not a continuation of the first innings.
Yeah,
I think yeah, I think that's what he had said. However, personally, I think this continuation of the first innings into the second innings would be something interesting to see, because it's just something new, and
yeah,
it will require teams to think of different ways to make it work.
yeah. And otherwise, yeah, the current format is really boring. Like even the World Cup might not be interesting enough because T20 at least has leagues that happen. ODI cricket doesn't even have that, right? You can't have a ODI cricket league. So there's nothing which will happen in between the World Cups. Then it'll become a format which suddenly people are like, oh, this even, oh, this exists, and they won't remember it. So yeah, something needs to be done for sure. Uh, anyway, that was us rambling about and ranting about the state of cricket. There's a lot of, as we head into now. Now I think this will be the decade where T20 cricket really takes over.
Hmm.
So I mean, we've been saying it, but I think that decade of the tens was, it was getting established around the world. We had the IPL and then we had other leagues. Now this is when it's going to actually, I think, now start to dominate conversations. So it'll be interesting to see how cricket evolves.
Yeah, for sure. I think one good T20 cricket is good. It's done a lot of good, but one of the other things that it's done is that it's so many nations now play T20 cricket. The smaller nations, the associate nations, they play T20 cricket. There's so many leagues across the world, in European countries, in Asian countries, and these countries are getting involved in cricket only because of T20 cricket. Because let's face it, it's faster, it's more exciting, and it attracts more people. So
Yeah.
T20 cricket, the format itself has been good for cricket. Let's not deny that. I know there are a lot of purists out there who don't like T20 cricket, but I think when you look at the bigger picture, T20 cricket has done good for world cricket in general.
Yeah, I mean, both people will always have an opinion, but you got to be realistic also with what's happening. Anyway, I think that's about it for this episode. We will be back next week where we'll likely review the India New Zealand first test at least, and then look ahead to the South Africa series, which hopefully should still happen despite this new variant being found of COVID. But yeah, lots to talk about, and that's for another time. Thank you for listening this week, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks for listening.